Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Bros podcast, episode number 50. I
Ooh. And I'm Nate.
Okay, we don't have fights this weekend, or we didn't have fights this weekend. We do have fights next weekend, and we have a ton of news that we got to get through. Not the least of which, so I guess, I don't know if you've got something more pressing, but I was going to talk about Jon Jones first.
Let's start with Jon Jones.
Okay, good. So, John, we talked about it last week with Ngannou beating Stipe. Quite impressively, I might add. Oh, that's the other thing. A couple people pointed out, or one person pointed out, when we were talking about whether or not it was a TKO. I misremembered it. I went back and watched it. It was a KO. I misremembered because at one point he was rocked and stumbled, and I thought that's what knocked him down. I forgot that there was a shot after that put him down on the ground before the big punch, right? Before the ground and pound. So that's my mistake.
The most shocking thing about what you just said is that someone actually corrected us, which means someone tried to communicate with us. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that did happen. So thank you for pointing that out. Hold on, I'm going to pull them up. But yeah, there was a little bit of news. Jon Jones was saying, "Hey, I don't want to keep doing this stuff. Fooling around with the UFC. You're not paying me enough. I deserve more money. That kind of stuff." Flying Maz, Crouching Askren was the one who said it wasn't TKO. It was a KO. What were you guys watching? You're right. It was a KO. My bad. We'll call that. We'll have a segment called Brendan's Blunders. And then this kind of gets into our question from Nicholas Lathian Scott. He's like, would love a detailed breakdown on how you think Jones-Francis would go now. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's talk about what actually happened. Francis wins. Tons of speculation about who's next. Most people are on the Jon Jones train. Myself included, just because I think that's what's going to happen. Not necessarily I think that's what deserves to happen. Yeah. I'd never even sat down and thought about that because I kind of just knew what was next, and it was going to be Jon Jones. So Jon Jones says $5 to $8 million isn't enough. Just release me already. Let me go. Francis says, yes, Jon Jones deserves more money to fight me. Hey, I'm not scared of him, blah, 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 all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then 2 days ago, Jones tweeted, hey, just had dinner with Dana White. We figured everything out. So hopefully that's done with, and we will get Francis versus Jon Jones. And since we're on the subject already, I'll let you break it down first. How do you think it goes based off of what we've seen from Francis lately and Jones lately? Brought to you by Fresco.
Oh, wow. And Yeti. Buffalo Trace, which is what's in the Yeti. All right. So every instinct I have tells me that Francis knocks Jon Jones out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a round? Do you think it happens early?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Probably, if I had to legitimately put money on it, I'd say second round. Because I think first Francis is going to want to feel out what it feels like to get hit by Jon a little bit, whether or not that's actually anything for him to be afraid of. And the longer the fight goes on, the more Jon's calf kicks, leg kicks are going to eat away at Francis. So Francis is, like many heavy hitters, his best option is round 1 to 2. And I think it's going to be hard to hit Jon in round 1, but I think all it takes is one solid exchange in round 2. And you see what it's like when Francis hits Jon Jones.
I don't know if we've ever seen Jon Jones' chin tested completely. I mean, he's taken a lot of shots, and he's taken heavy hits from, Gustafsson with that spinning elbow. He's taken a lot of cumulative damage, but I don't think he's ever taken a full-on punch, power punch right to the jaw. And that's a testament to how good Jon Jones is. He's been in there with the best of his division and in his time when he was champion. And in any of those fights, he wasn't really tested. His chin was never really fully tested like that. He was put in compromising positions a few times, right? With Vitor Belfort, and I mean, guess Lyoto Machida kind of got him with the blitz a little bit, but I think that was overplayed.
Before Thiago Santos messed his knee up, John was
he lost that fight, in my opinion, anyway.
He was taking some damage in that fight.
So I'm leaning towards Francis as well. Here's the problem with it is this is why I was so adamant 2 weeks ago saying like I wanted to see a 5-round fight, because I want to see how Francis is in round 3, 4, and 5. You know, we haven't seen it since the Derek Lewis fight, really, and he was really tentative in that fight. And before that, we saw him gas out versus Stipe.
That was barely Francis Ngannou in the Derek Lewis fight. That was
right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So, what does Francis look like after round 2? Because
I would love to know as well.
If you go off of what Stipe said, you know, he said, "Hey, I made a mistake. You know, I felt him getting weaker. The game plan was working, and I abandoned the game plan and I rushed in. I made a mistake. I won't do it again. I'll be back." You know, that was Stipe's. So in that offhand remark, you know, he mentions how he felt Ngannou getting weaker. Stipe isn't the one. He is not a guy who plays up himself and puts down his opponents. Obviously, if you know anything about these two guys, they're very complimentary of every opponent they've ever faced. They're just, I mean, in the fighting aspect anyway. I'm sure they've criticized their opponent's character at some point, like, you know, Stipe saying DC doesn't want to fight me and why isn't he fighting me? That kind of stuff. More business aspect, less about, you know, trying to break the other guy down publicly. So that being said, Stipe mentions that offhand comment, and he says, you know, I felt him getting weaker. So does that mean that Francis totally gasses out by the end of round 3 and then he's a shell of himself in 4 or 5? Or is he one of those guys who obviously gets weaker because he's gigantic? You know, over 25 minutes, you're going to lose some of that pop. But we've seen it happen thousands of times. If you, just because you're getting weaker, doesn't mean 1, your opponent's not getting weaker, or 2, that you can't land a big shot. And also that your cardio is bad. That just because you're slowing down doesn't mean your cardio is bad. It just means that you don't have like Tony Ferguson, Frankie Edgar level cardio, Max Holloway level cardio, where it's just like forward, never tired.
I would argue every single heavyweight in the heavyweight division gets weaker after round 2.
I would say after the first 2 minutes.
So, like, you know, how did Francis feel about Stipe? Did Stipe feel weak? Like, yeah, sure, Francis gets weaker in round 2. John Jones at heavyweight probably gets weaker after round 2 as well. We've never seen, like, he has been fighting and conditioned at light heavyweight for a long time. And I'm not saying he's not going to have good cardio at heavyweight, but that's a lot of weight to put on. It's not all muscle, and, you know.
So what are the ways? So, all right. So let's break this down to how does John Jones win this fight? Okay. Let's play devil's advocate against our own gut. And then let's say, how does he win this fight? So
I got my most likely way.
What, 5-round decision?
5-round split decision.
Yeah. I mean, judging by his history, probably.
The data backs me up. I think the most likely John Jones win is a 5-round split decision.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I say that if he plays the game properly, he has the ability. We've seen it multiple times. He's very good. His fight IQ is insane, and that just doesn't go for what's going on in there as far as defeating your opponent physically. It means playing the game properly. So not acting hurt, constantly moving forward, showing that like things don't hit you. So like if you stay relaxed and you get punched in the face and like you pop your head back naturally every single time and you make big grand gestures every time they throw a punch at you, you know, it draws attention to that punch. Whereas if you just don't move, they might even think it missed because they're not privy to the strike count. I
would make the argument that John Jones is the most disciplined fighter. In the ring, he's the most disciplined fighter in the UFC, which is funny to like.
Catch.
I started to say that, I was like, when he steps foot in the octagon, he is the most disciplined fighter in the UFC. No one makes less mistakes or deviates from the game plan less than him.
I would say Khabib, but yeah,
we've seen some instances.
Well, I just haven't seen Khabib
Recent,
all those things that we say about John Jones, like never getting rocked, never getting stopped, never getting knocked down, all those things. Like you can say the same thing for Khabib. And we're not having the GOAT argument. We're not having the GOAT argument.
All Quinta fight that there was some criticism of him deviating from what his dad wanted him to do and why that fight was so close. I know it's a one singular example, but that's still one more example of John Jones.
I often cite that as a testament to how Khabib had weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. But that being said, if you look at that fight, it was a one-way decision. Like he jabbed Iaquinta's face off because he was like, well, Iaquinta's standing in a split stance. He's like 3/4 of the way to a split. I'm not going to dive in for takedowns constantly. He's like, I'll just jab him from the outside. Okay. And he won that way. So it's not like, he had a bad fight. It was just, there was clearly a way to stop his forward pressure, and it was by standing in a split, basically. Anyway, so John Jones could win by split decision. Here's the other way I see it. Obviously, there's always a chance that anybody gets caught at any time. It's human. We're as humans. It could be 1 in a million. It could be 1 in 1,000. It could be 1 in 10. It could be 1 in 100. Right. But if he throws the right punch, the right kick at the right time, and it lands in the right spot, Francis could get knocked out. It's just the way it is.
All right, I'm gonna put that at number 5 in my top 5 ways John Jones can win this fight. No,
don't get me wrong. I don't think it's likely. Yeah. But I do think possible. He could. I think he could get a finish. I think he could get a finish via submission or TKO, due to Francis getting exhausted. I think that is possible.
Number 3 for me is submission. If I'm going top 5 ways John Jones wins, my number 1
split decision.
Split. Number 2 is unanimous, and I would argue like unanimous, won all 5 rounds by points. May not be the most exciting fight, but John Jones just dominates on points all 5 rounds.
Then we got possible.
Yeah. And then you have wrestle him down, got some situation where he got Francis on the ground, tired him out, maybe finishes in like 4th round, early 5th with a submission. And then down at like 4 to 5, you got TKO and knockout.
Yeah. So the TKO, the submission, I think are one and the same. I think they come about the same way. The TKO doesn't come from a big punch. I think it comes from exhaustion. Maybe he can trip, do a trip against the fence, or because he hasn't been going for like a lot of offensive wrestling lately. But, just a trip against the fence when Ngannou's tired, and then getting on top of him, putting Ngannou in a compromised position and landing enough punches or getting a rear naked choke or some sort of submission from the top because Ngannou's like tired, and that's possible. All of these things I think are less likely than Francis landing one punch and knocking him out. Agreed. But I don't see Francis winning a 5-round decision easily. I think that's less likely than Jones winning a 5-round decision. I think that it's very close, but there's so much unknown with Francis cardio and how he is past round 3 now. I have no idea what to think.
Have you ever seen like a decision tree from data analysis?
Maybe.
All right. So if I was I wish I actually just drew this out. I had a whiteboard. If I was going to draw out a decision tree, we'd have essentially the first split, which is Francis wins, and then the other way is John wins. I know what it is. And it would be my money would be like 55 to 60% of the times Francis wins, and then the other way John wins. Now John has more branches on his tree for the different types of ways. Francis pretty much, I think, has 2, which is knockout and then split decision.
Or a TKO. No, he can get a TKO. Okay.
For me, knockout TKO is going to be about.
But his knockout TKO is different than John Jones' TKO submission, right? His knockout is going to be from one big punch and then follow up with little punches.
Yeah, a Francis TKO is basically going to be the same conditions as a knockout for him. It's just whether or not John goes all the way out. And then a split decision would be basically the other branch on Francis.
I think that's less likely.
That would be
than John getting the split.
How I think that happens is essentially if Francis gets if Francis gets a knockdown, or 2 knockdowns in one round. Like, basically, he would have to get a 10-8 round, and then you would have, some toss-up rounds. Like, that would be the way that you end up with a Francis split decision, is he gets a knockdown but never finishes the fight.
So from what I've seen from Jon Jones, the reason I'm leaning towards Francis is based off of Jon Jones' recent performances. Let me pull him up because I remember
Yes.
them in general, but I just want to be sure of the order because none of them were impressive. The most impressive one was Anthony Smith.
But Anthony Smith, sure enough, probably been in that ring.
I mean, and he still almost lost that fight because he could have lost on a foul because he
on DQ. Which technically we have to add another one to Francis' side because Jon Jones sometimes has had issues with eye pokes and had issues with.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
all right.
It's not the first time it's not the first time he almost got DQ'd.
So let's look at this. Okay. So Mauricio, we can go back to when he first won the title. Those are some good wins, but I don't want to get
the last 4 fights.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the goat thing right now. Yeah. What I just want to get into is let's look at.
You can look at OSP on almost.
Well, I would start with Alexander Gustafsson because that was the first Gustafsson fight. Yes. A lot of people thought he lost that one, right? Okay, then he fights Glover Teixeira to a decision. Okay, gets a decision. DC, he wins, I think, definitely 4 of the rounds against DC in their first fight, but not really an inspired performance, just enough to get the job done. He has one of the worst performances I've ever seen against OSP when he came back.
And let's be frank on it. He popped hot after the first DC fight, right?
No. That's yes. Hold on. No, that's when he hit the pregnant chick.
Okay, that was that controversy.
Okay. So then OSP, he comes back after that whole controversy. He was supposed to fight DC. DC got injured. Comes back on 1 week's notice. OSP steps up and I would say made Jon Jones look terrible. Okay.
Yes.
Then he fights DC a second time. Has his most impressive performance as of late, right? And then he pops positive, right? So that was a knockout, and he pops positive. So no contest there. Then he had Alexander Gustafsson, the second fight. That was impressive. That was an impressive win, but Gustafsson was kind of half in, half out, and he just hasn't looked inspired.
Yep.
Then he had Anthony Smith, boring decision. Thiago Santos, split decision in which many people thought he lost, myself included. Dominic Reyes, a decision in which many people thought he lost.
And I still say to this day, if it weren't for Thiago Santos' knee, he would have cleanly won that fight.
So if we go off of, and if that Alexander Gustafsson fight happened in 2013, so for the past 8 years, for the past 8 years, he has had lackluster performances or wins marred by controversy.
Yep.
Okay.
Because he did pop hot after his best performance against DC.
Right. And then the Gustafsson fight was good, but I'm not going to take that away from Jon Jones. He can only fight who they put in front of him. So that was a good win. It's just Gustafsson wasn't himself, and he just didn't look good. Plus, I think he got the title shot after a lot. I don't remember. Anyway.
It wasn't the same Gustafsson.
So we're looking at how he gets these wins, right? So out-pointing, out-cardioing, out-moving. Definitely no knockouts, no big punches, no sweeping motions, no takedowns, nothing like that. Not a lot of offense, just not overly offensive, just very tight defensively and enough offense to get the job done.
Yeah.
Now, how does that work when you fight Francis? Because Francis likes to move forward. Francis is as big as him. I don't know about their reach. I mean,
he's gotta have equal or.
Jon Jones has really long arms.
I know Jon Jones is big, but
I think he has an 84-inch reach. Yeah, 84 and a half.
What's Francis?
Okay. 83. So let's call it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So about the same, but and then we all know that Jon Jones is very tall.
Well, Jon Jones' true reach isn't his jab; it's his calf kick. That's the distance that he keeps people at. Is basically his oblique and calf kicks.
So they're both about 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
So we might get in there, and John Jones might be actually taller than Francis, based off of what we've seen in the past.
And the last I saw, John Jones was clocking in at about 245. He was
so for sure he's gonna be lighter. There's no way he comes in heavier than Francis.
No, he's definitely gonna be lighter, but he's gonna be the heaviest John Jones he's ever been.
Yeah, and then so all these things, all these factors put in, all the unknowns. I'm leaning towards Francis because it's a known quantity to me. I've seen what he can do lately. His takedown defense looked incredible. He looked much more composed, and that might be how you beat John Jones: staying composed and not overexerting yourself.
I've also seen
he can do that.
I've seen how he performs against the best heavyweights in the division, like flat out, and not just
he just blows them out. Yeah,
like that's staying composed and being able to do what he did to Stipe is unbelievable when you think about how good Stipe is. So that's why I lean, that 55 to 60% Francis.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the wild card is
still go Francis.
Yeah, the wild card is can he knock out and finish John Jones?
Dude, I have no idea.
Because we have no idea what his chin looks like at heavyweight.
No, I have no clue. All right, some other news. Oh God. Oh, so Miesha Tate is coming back to the UFC and fighting Marion Reneau. That's kind of interesting. I don't have like a breakdown right now. We can do that when it gets closer. I just thought that was interesting because, like, Miesha Tate not only left the UFC a long time ago because she didn't like fighting anymore, she also works for ONE FC as like an ambassador and like she works, like she's a big part of that. Some other things, Marvin Vettori is not fighting Darren Till anymore. He's fighting Holland. So because Holland just steps up all the time. It's absolutely incredible the amount of Kevin Holland just keeps wanting to fight. He's just like, yeah, I'll fight next weekend. Why not? There were some other things. Some interesting. There's actually some good fights coming up this weekend.
When is the Reebok deal due for? Isn't this year or next year the renegotiation period?
It's over. They're not doing it. Venom got the deal.
Venom did? Okay, maybe that was the other like big news thing I was thinking about.
Venom's had the deal for a while. It's just like they put out the announcement for gloves and they showed like the picture of the gloves and they look exactly. Haha, I have it here this time. So it looks exactly like this one, but it says Venom on it. It doesn't. It's like it doesn't. They're not curved, right? So this is your UFC glove. Straight fingers. So it naturally wants to splay your fingers open, and that's the big criticism of the gloves. And they have another chance to update them, and they haven't. It's so stupid. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's not like it hasn't been done before. Bellator does it. Pride did it. Yeah. I don't know if Strikeforce did it, but it's not that hard. You put a curve in the fucking gloves.
It is a shame.
Do you have any other news? I felt like there was something else that happened this week.
I know Burns versus Wonderboy is.
Oh, they're verbally agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't booked that one yet, but that one finally gets Wonderboy back in there, so I'm excited. Colby's kind of odd man out right now.
I know.
Which I don't know what the hell's going on, but I think the Jorge Masvidal rematch really screwed things up.
They're saving Kobe for the midterm election. That's what.
Great.
I don't know.
Yeah, so because Leon, let's see, Leon
Usman Masvidal 2 is now definitely happening.
Yes, Bilal Muhammad is supposed to fight Damian Maia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it just screws everything up. And this is, for those of you guys who are big fans of Masvidal and wanting, like, happy that he got this thing, like, I'm not shitting on you, nor am I saying that he hasn't put in the work or that he doesn't necessarily deserve the recognition that he's receiving now. What I'm saying, like, one of the reasons I get so pissy about this stuff is look what it's doing to this welterweight division.
All right. I think I can articulate this pretty well. I'm not mad about it because I've seen way less deserving people get title shots, but I just don't think he's in the best and most deserving position in that division to get that title shot at this moment. But at the end of the day, the UFC set up worse and more questionable title matches than that. So, that's kind of
I don't know.
par for the course.
I don't know. I'm sure there has been a worse one, but this is one of the worst. Like, he's coming off of a 5-round decision loss to the guy he's supposed to fight again for the belt, in which, and in those 5 rounds, didn't win a single one.
Yeah.
And it's not even an immediate rematch. He hasn't had to fight anybody else. Kamaru Usman fights Gilbert Burns, and now they're giving it to Jorge again. Like, that's how much this doesn't make sense.
But fucking good on Jorge's manager or team for setting this up.
Like, sure. Again,
all the ways
I'm
this
not
could've gone
mad
for
because he's
Jorge.
getting money.
But I would have to look it up too. And yeah, it's not great, but it's still not the worst title matchup. Or, I've seen worse than this one.
Here, like, I can think of a bad one in my head. Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping.
Yeah.
That was bad, but at least Dan Henderson beat a guy the same night that Bisping got the title. So,
True.
like, they were on the same schedule. They have a history with each other, and he's coming off a win. This is going to be one of the last fights, if not the last fight of his career, and they want to give him one last shot at it. Whatever. Like, it was like a going away present for Dan Henderson, who has done a lot for the sport and for the UFC. So I'm not going to sit there and tell him he doesn't deserve that after a win. But coming off a lot, like, if Dan Henderson lost to Bisping for the title, and then then they let Bisping fight, I don't know, name a person, Jacare, and then he beats Jacare, and then they're like, hey, Dan Henderson, do you want to fight again? Like, that's how shitty this is. Like,
I know.
It doesn't make any sense because now, like I said, look what it's doing to the division. You've got Colby Burns, Leon Edwards, Stephen Thompson, Luque coming off a big win.
Yeah, no. It should absolutely be Stephen Thompson versus Usman, and then Burns versus Masvidal. That makes sense.
Sure.
All things considered, all right, cool. Have the two people that got beat by Usman fight each other.
Or have Edward. You know what? I wouldn't even. I said that Leon Edwards shouldn't get the title shot after the DQ, or it wasn't a DQ. It was a no contest. Because I crazily did this thing, assuming that they would make a more a reasonable fight. Now looking back at it, holy shit! I wish they gave Leon the shot, because at least he's coming off of a fight that was going his way.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't get the win. I don't know. It's just screwing up the division, and I hate that it's putting everybody on hold. I mean, it's all going to work itself out. I just don't like it.
Hey, you're probably not alone.
I mean, I'm sure Jorge Masvidal loves it.
Which is, I think, why people aren't really that upset about it. Because at the end of the day, he's a very likable and popular fighter. Like, for the casual fan, this doesn't seem like a bad thing.
Whatever. I know. I didn't like the first fight. I don't like this one, but I don't care.
It's going to be great for Usman's record. So.
I don't know if you saw this, but Jose Aldo is trying to set up a fight with Dominic Cruz.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, interesting, right? Because Aldo looks great, and Cruz he's not a shadow of his former self. He still has a lot left to give.
And I think I was a little overly critical of his last fight, like, in hindsight.
I mean, he didn't look like himself, but, himself before was the best bantamweight of possibly in the world at that time. Yeah. They're trying to set that fight up. That would be fun.
I agree. That would be awesome.
All right. Okay. I think that's it for the news. I don't have a lot else.
Yeah, I was trying to skim through and see if there was something else that popped up.
I mean, Cyril Gane is supposed to fight Volkov. They're trying to set that fight up, which is cool because a lot of people are saying Cyril Gane might be Francis's toughest test.
It would be his newest test.
Well, I just mean that.
I know what they're trying to say, but it's like, he's gone through so many people in the division that like just the fact it's someone different would be the most interesting aspect of it.
I think Cyril Gane, he's a very technical kickboxer, and that's why people are saying that he poses a lot of problems to Francis. But that's what they said about Rosenstruck. I wasn't so high on Rosenstruck. No. I was not high on Rosenstruck, and then we saw how Rosenstruck fought Gane. Both good kickboxers, and Gane just did whatever he wanted in there. Yep. Okay, so I would say clearly the superior. I know styles make fights, whatever. Well, Rosenstruck's style didn't work against Ngannou. So maybe Gane's will. All right. This weekend we got a fight night led by the Italian Dream, Marvin Vettori, versus Kevin Holland. So Marvin Vettori has some really cool shirts. I don't know if I told you. So he has really cool apparel, but it's out of Italy, and it's a $20 shirt, right? Or a $30 shirt. Well, the shipping's like $45. I want some of his gear and I want to support him because I like him as a fighter and I think he's cool. Plus, he has really badass looking shirts. I just I'm not spending $50 to ship it to the U.S.
Yeah, I feel you on that. If shipping costs more than the shirt,
yeah, that's a problem. All right, so. Looking at the division, right? Yeah, he was supposed to fight Darren Till, who's ranked number 5, but Vettori is ranked number 6. Okay, Kevin Holland is currently ranked number 10, coming off the win of the loss to Derek Brunson, right? So he dropped down a couple. All right, so Marvin Vettori is just sitting outside the top 5, and I would argue if he gets a win here, he takes Darren Till's spot. Being the way everything's laid out, so Whitaker was supposed to fight Costa, but Costa's not fighting because he had the flu a month out from his fight. Asshole. Anyway, so you've got Jared Cannonier, who, to my knowledge, does not have a fight, and you've got Jack Hermanson at rank number 7, and then Kelvin Gastelum, rank number 8, is fighting Whitaker. Uriah Hall, I believe, is also unmatched. So, you're familiar with Kevin Holland now, and you're familiar with Vettori. How do you think this fight goes?
My instinct is Vettori, but honestly, I could not really give you an educated assessment on it. I've seen a lot of good stuff from Vettori for the last 2 times that I saw him fight, which were the first 2 times, but middleweight can be interesting like that. You don't always know. So,
Vettori's first fight in the UFC was against Izzy.
I know, and that's why I lean towards Vettori. I think I want to, and we've talked about before. I want to see a rematch of him versus Izzy, especially.
Oh wait,
how much?
No, sorry, that wasn't his first fight. That was my bad. I'm sorry.
That was Izzy's first fight, wasn't it?
Maybe. I don't remember now.
I think it was Izzy's first fight in the UFC was against Vettori. And Vettori was pretty new. Either way, that's, we've talked about before. That's it.
No, his first fight was Rob Wilkinson. His second fight was Marvin. But yes.
That out of all the fights that Izzy has had and potential rematches that you could make out of it, I think Vettori is one of the more interesting ones. Just because of his trajectory after Izzy. So, yeah, I lean towards Vettori, but I wouldn't be surprised if Holland won.
Yeah, he's had an up and down. He was up and down a little bit before Izzy. He gets a win in his a submission in his debut against Alberto Uda. I don't know if I remember that one. I remember his fight against Antonio Carlos Jr., which he lost a decision. I remember his fight against Vitor Miranda. I do remember the draw against Omari Akhmedov. I do remember watching it, but I don't remember how I felt about it. And I remember watching his split decision loss to Izzy. That's the part that is significant. Is he had a split decision loss to Izzy,
which says a lot about Izzy, since the most interesting rematches are people that lost to him, or
that's crazy.
We're just begging to see someone refight him who lost the best to him.
Our one-on-one judges scorecards. We're talking about. It could have gone his way. I don't remember it being that close. I thought Izzy won that fight. So then he fights Cesar Ferreira, Andrew Sanchez, and submits Carl Roberson, and then beats Jack Hermanson, which is his best win because it was a 5-round decision. He went for 5 rounds, and he looked incredible against Jack Hermanson. So if he beats Kevin Holland this weekend, I think he's not just – I don't think he – sorry. It's justifiable to give him a title shot off of his resume. What it's not is it's not justifiable over Robert Whittaker. Right? I think what Robert Whittaker has done is much better. Even Derek Brunson, I think, has maybe earned a second shot at Izzy.
But definitely Robert Whittaker, for sure.
Yeah, so he needs to fight him. I don't know why he got passed over to begin with. Whatever. So this fight to me is about discipline on Vettori. Can he stay within himself and not fall into Holland's, talking? Because if he overextends himself and gasses himself out, I think Holland can get the finish here. But if he stays within himself and tries to pick Holland apart and stay disciplined on the feet, I think, this could be a boring 5-round decision, but it's a win for Marvin, right? I don't know if he can knock out Holland. Holland's been hit pretty damn hard, and he just doesn't seem to go out. So I don't – Vettori isn't like this destroyer when it comes to punching power or kicking power. So I don't see – that's always a possibility. I just don't see it as a likely situation. I'm leaning towards Vettori because, like I said, he's much more disciplined. I think he's a better striker on the feet, and he has shown that he can do that at the highest level in the UFC.
I think storyline-wise, it would be better for the division if Vettori won too, just because you can start to set up for more interesting rematch for Izzy.
And we got with Kevin Holland, I think his keys to victory are the opposite, making Marvin push real hard, making Marvin gas himself out, going for takedowns against Vettori, making him fight sloppy, being really creative in there, possibly going for submissions early on the ground, just wearing Vettori out, and hopefully getting a decision by looking sharper in the later rounds and having more energy, or possibly getting a TKO or a submission finish.
So, interesting question for you. Do you think Izzy's loss to Jan kind of brings a little bit more fire back to the middleweight division?
No.
I mean, I know he didn't lose to a middleweight, but just essentially seeing an
I know what
actual
you're
match
saying.
Where Izzy lost. Does it
makes him
open
look
up
human.
anything, or not just like human, but makes people kind of see like, okay, here are some areas, some things that you can actually try and exploit on him or push him on. So I don't know. Do you think it makes middleweight a little bit more interesting, or the competition a little bit more fired up?
I wouldn't say not for me. I guess if you're into that whole thing where you think that people thought he was unbeatable and there weren't challenges out there for him, and now you think like, oh, clearly he's got some flaws in his game and now he's beatable. I knew listen,
everyone.
This isn't. That's what I was about to say. I'm not trying to say that I could beat him here. Okay, I'm not saying I'm an MMA expert, because I'm definitely not. What I'm saying is, for sure, he has weaknesses in his game, and they can be exploited. Okay, Kelvin Gastelum took advantage of them. He just wasn't able to do enough. Right? He almost finished him. Right? Yeah. We can look at Jan Blachowicz did it. Vettori almost got it done early on. So there are ways to win against Izzy, right? We've seen that he's closed in some of those gaps, but clearly he has an issue. Now, can you exploit them enough, or can you exploit enough of them to get a win over 5 rounds against Izzy? That's the real question. And it's going to be a tough task, but I think it's possible, right? So for me, that possibility has always been there, and that's why I wanted to see Vettori back up there. I wanted to see Whitaker one more time, like put the bookends on that, because if he blows the doors off of Whitaker a second time, now I know for sure, oh, okay, he's just that much better. It wasn't a fluke. Not that I think it was a fluke. I just think, it was he caught him early, and I think if it goes longer, maybe it's more interesting. I'm not interested in the Costa rematch for many reasons. Nope. The Brunson rematch, I'm interested in. I don't know if it goes any different. I'm interested in a Gastelum rematch for obvious reasons. It's one of the best fights he's ever had. I think Jack Hermanson would be an interesting test.
If it got to it, it would be interesting for me. I want to see Uriah Hall.
Again, that's what I'm saying. It's
if he was able to get there, there's a lot of meat still at middleweight that can put Izzy to the test and would make for exciting fights.
There's a ton of them. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think him losing to Blachowicz changed anything in my mind. I'm sure it changed for some people because it humanized him. I don't want to say exposed him for what he is, because he's a really good fighter, and he got beat by a guy who outweighs him by like 30 or 40 pounds.
I think it was just
also the champion at the division he went up to go in.
I think it's a reminder of why we have weight classes.
Yeah, sure.
Like if I really had to boil that fight down to like one talking point, which, there's a handful you can draw out of it, but it's a reminder that weight classes exist for a reason. And while some people have been able to, work the way around and become multiple belt champions, when you get up into the higher weight classes, even a little bit of difference makes a lot.
That, I don't know if that's the hardest gap to do. That might be one of the hardest gaps in the UFC.
Middleweight to light heavyweight?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would argue it is.
Because you're dealing with... Because one, it's a 20-pound jump, right? So these guys who are cutting down to 185 are often doing it from, naturally over 200 pounds. So like Izzy doesn't do that necessarily, but a lot of middleweights do.
But guys cutting 205.
Exactly. They're cutting down from 240.
Heavyweights.
Yeah. Some of them are cutting from 240, 230. We're looking at guys who are just monsters trying to cut down. So on fight night, they might be 220, whereas these guys who are naturally walking around at 200
on fight night are 195 maybe.
Yeah, or maybe they're 200. Maybe they don't cut at all.
But we're still talking about a realistic about 30-pound difference.
Yeah,
most likely between the two fighters.
And you say water weight, which is part of it, but it's also like muscle is there's a lot of water in your muscles. So like, having that much more, just weight in general is a factor, obviously, especially when you're on top or pressuring, pressing them against the fence. So your weight is always a factor when it comes to those things, because it wears them out faster. But also having more muscle, doesn't always equate to more strength. All right. I don't want to hear it. I understand that there's people who weigh 130 pounds who can deadlift more than people who weigh 200. I don't want to fucking hear it. I understand that. But generally speaking, especially in a sport like this,
there's physics.
Where it's elites, you have like the people with more muscle are going to be stronger on average.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just how it works. It doesn't mean they're going to hit harder. It doesn't mean that they're naturally going to be able to take you down better. It just means they're going to be stronger overall, whether that's leg strength, being able to stay up on their feet, whether it's picking you up because their lower back is stronger, whether their lats are stronger so they can squeeze you in tighter. Maybe their whole system for guillotines is really strong, like Fabricio Verdum, and he can put a nasty squeeze on you. Or you got someone like Oleanic who can put that Ezekiel choke on you like nobody's business. It's just...
Well, there's a pure physics aspect to it as well. And now, and when you combine physics with someone that had the skill level to become a light heavyweight champion, that's a lot to get. Like, that's a lot to fucking ask of someone from a lower weight class going up. Like, there's plenty of 205ers that Izzy could probably beat.
Sure.
Most
Yeah,
of them probably.
I think
But
so.
when you're talking about the 205 champion, even if it's Jan who just got there, it's still someone that has all of those physical and purely scientific advantages. Plus, he had the skill level to get to the championship. So, yeah, it's a big ask for a 185 champion to beat a 205 champion.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where if you take two people who are relatively close in muscular skeletal structure, right? So having the same amount of type 2, type 1 muscle fibers, whatever. Okay. And one of them weighs 20 pounds more. It doesn't necessarily mean that the guy who's 20 pounds heavier is going to be stronger in every aspect. But if they both practice the same technique, equal amount of times with the same amount of veracity, you're going to get more out of the guy who has 20 pounds more of muscle. It's just how it is. He has more structure to build on. And because of that, you get that big difference at, 185 and 205, because every other one, you have the 15-pound gap between 170 and 185. I believe that's probably pretty hard too, now that I think about it, but we've seen it. Whitaker is the champ at 185, and I'm pretty sure if he could still cut to 170, he might be able to do well. But I think it's doable. And then 155 to 170, we've seen a lot of people have success there. I think the real thing that happens when you get to the lower weight classes is how stacked they are, right? So now you're not just dealing with like the physics. Now you're also dealing with like how good everybody is in that division. Like you're not going to have a weak champion at 155, 170. After a lower than 170 and below, you're not going to have a weak champion. It's just not going to happen.
Yes.
205, 185, you could argue someone could get lucky and knock Izzy out, who isn't the strongest champion.
We have seen, I would say, I don't know. It would be hard for me to say we've seen more weak champions at the higher weight classes. Maybe we've had more weak contenders, I would argue.
Yeah.
That, like, someone contending or in a championship fight at a lower weight class is more likely to be of a higher skill level than someone contending for middleweight and above. I think we've seen a lot of contenders and a lot of people fight for a championship belt at higher weight classes that absolutely were not at the skill level that the people contending for 155 or 145 have been at. Like, if you're getting to the championship fight at 45, like, that's a crazy skill level that you've achieved just getting to that fight. Versus sometimes people slip through and, get a shot at 205.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Okay.
I was also thinking about, the Bisping being the champ. He didn't get lucky. He threw the punch. Rockhold was lazy as crap. Rockhold beating Weidman. I mean, they were both really good and all.
There's some blips in those divisions, but those divisions have also produced some of the most iconic and long-lasting champions. So that's why it's hard for me to say at the champion level it's weaker, but I think at the contender level and that kind of like top 5 level, that's where you see a higher skill level in the lower weight classes versus the higher ones. I mean, how long was
that makes
Yoel
sense.
Romero top 5 of fucking middleweight?
And constantly losing. Anyway, all right. What we have? Arnold Allen fighting Sodiq Yusuf. Arnold Allen. What is his rank? I feel like he's gone kind of under the radar here. Because he's a featherweight. Doop. Arnold Allen ranked number 10. Sodiq Yusuf is 11. So this is pushing them towards, because Dan Ige just came off a big win. You got Jeremy Stevens still at 9. I'd love to see him fight again. Josh Emmett, who hasn't fought in probably 8 months. Yair Rodriguez is still number 4 for some reason. That's cool. Zabit Magomed Sharipov is still up there for some, and they don't want to fight each other. Like that fight has been booked and canceled more times. I'm sick of these two prima donnas. Like they're absolutely ridiculous. Brian Ortega's getting the next title shot. Max Holloway is arguably the best fighter not named Alexander Volkanovski. So we got Arnold Allen trying to work his way into the top.
And I still want to see that fight again. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would watch that fight. I would let them keep fighting until someone else clearly comes out. Like Brian Ortega, to me,
if they fought 5 times, I wouldn't be upset.
No,
some of those would be some of the top 5 fights in UFC history.
They're interesting. They're technical. They're relatively close. Like the first one, Volkanovski clearly won that fight, but none of the rounds were so far one-sided as far as like damage or output that you're like, this shouldn't keep going. It was still fun, And Holloway kind of picked up the pressure in the later rounds in 4 and 5, and then in the second fight, though he was down on strikes in every round, I believe with his pressure and the damage he did, I believe he got 3 of those rounds. I thought Holloway won that fight.
Yeah, those fights are like world-class championship, like chess matches, where it's so incredibly close and more often closer to a draw than a win that it's like, all right, let's keep going. Just keep playing them.
All right, we got Kyle Dawkins fighting, oh my God. Khalis Kizriev. I promise everybody I will pronounce that correct next week, because once I hear it out loud, I'll be able to pronounce it. I'm usually pretty good at picking up people's names, and I can pronounce them, except for Blachowicz, because they pronounce it 7 different ways. Is it Blachowicz? Is it Blachowicz? Is it Blachowicz? Is it Blachowicz? Like, there are, I've heard it all the different ways.
Have we ever heard him say it?
That's usually what I wait for, because
I'm trying to think of, like, have we ever heard him just say his fucking last name? Because then that would clear it all up. But
because to this day, I still feel bad saying Rafael dos Anjos, even though he is Brazilian and the R should be a soft R with the H sound, right? So the H sound. So it should be Rafael dos Anjos, but he pronounces his name Rafael.
I mean,
so
is he?
I don't know if he's doing that because...
Is there a Spanish subset in Brazil that's not necessarily Portuguese that...
There might be, but it's more of preference also, like how people can pronounce their names. Like people in the United States pronounce their names different from each other, right?
Oh, yeah.
They can use... I know English is a little bit different, but Stacy with an I or Stacy with a Y, like it's just how they want to spell it or whatever.
And Brazil ain't a small country, so yeah.
No, it's 80% of the size of the United States with 300 million people. So it's a giant country with a ton of people. Arguably more genetically diverse in their initial, because of their initial forming, right? So they have for race, for example, like we have in the United States, we have like definitive races, whereas in Brazil, because of how integrated their society has been for a very long time, they have 8 different words for different shades of skin, right? So as you get darker, it's not just brown, white, black, orange, purple, right? It's not just like definitive color. Like they have different words for different shades of skin, and like it's because they've had to develop those because it's been a part of their culture for so long. So yes, I would say like it's very diverse in their original formation, and they've kept a lot of those things, and it's integrated more into their society. I don't know if you have a lot of people moving to Brazil. I don't think it's a destination hub like the United States is. I'm sure it is for some for some people.
The effects of Central and South American colonialism, though, makes it very interesting, and especially with how those divisions blends, how much is rooted in essentially native South Americans, native Central Americans, like versus Portuguese versus Spanish versus slaves that are brought over, how all of those groups intermingle. Like it becomes a lot more complex and diverse and cross than necessarily things are in parts of North America. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine there's a significant amount of diversity in how people use pronunciation, language, names, everything down there. Especially because a lot of what we're exposed to is probably a subset that just happens to branch out from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Which is
exactly.
Which is likely rooted culturally in, I don't necessarily know what the Gracie lineage goes back to, but
no, but it's
very culturally
specific.
In what the Gracie lineage, language, and kind of naming conventions are associated.
Right. So yeah, I'll pronounce that guy's name right next week.
as we get into another half hour of talking about naming conventions from foreign cultures.
Yeah. Well, his name is Alias Khab. So Elias Cobb. It could be his name. It's Kizriev is probably his last name. I bet you I'm closer on his last name than his first. Doesn't matter. Let's go on to the next one.
In English lettering.
Sure. Also, he's gray, so he doesn't even have a colored picture yet. At middleweight, we've got Sam Alvey, so he cut back down to middleweight again. I don't know if his last fight was at middleweight or at light heavyweight. I thought it was at light heavy. And then against Julian Marquez, who is famous now because he has a podcast with Kendra Lust.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I only know about her, and I swear this. The only reason I know about her is because it pops up on Twitter. Shut up.
From Instagram, you can just say.
No. I don't have Instagram. I don't use Instagram. No. So on Twitter, right? A lot of she's a huge fan of MMA, and she a lot of MMA fighters post things with her, and they repost her stuff. So that's how I found out. And I'm like, who is this person? And then I clicked her profile. I'm like, oh, geez. And then I do follow Julian Marquez because he is a fighter in the UFC, and he's in a podcast with her. Called I think it's Beauty and the Beast, which is a great name.
Yeah. I can't be mad at that.
Yeah. That's right. His name is the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh my god. That's a great name. I can't be mad at that either. I love good nicknames in the UFC. There's something special about it. I hate bad nicknames, but I love a good nickname in the UFC. Cuban Missile Crisis is a solid one.
Yeah, he's I want to check out his recent history because it's hard for me to keep up with all these things.
Yeah,
I can
barely keep up with the podcast that I enjoy, let alone every type of media.
Let's see. He beat Darren Stewart, lost to Alessio Di Chirico via split decision. Oh, he beat Maki Pitolo with the anaconda choke. Okay, at middleweight. Maki Pitolo is the hard-hitting dude, and that was back in February of last. Oh, hold on. That was February of this year. Do I remember that?
February happened this year? What?
No, I'm trying to remember his fight offhand.
I definitely don't.
Oh, man. Anyway, so they're fighting. I think Julian's going to win. I think Sam Alvey is going to win one way and one way only, and it's a big knockout. And people have found a way around his big right hand. He stands flat-footed. He backs up to the cage. Doesn't use a lot of crazy movements. Doesn't use a lot of jab, duck, uppercut, none of that crap. It's big right hands. He hits really hard. He bites down on the mouthpiece, and then he smiles when he knocks you out. That's his thing. I think he's a really fun guy. It's just, I think he's a fun fighter to watch when the knockouts happen, but he doesn't even get in brawls, right? He has a lot of boring fights because these guys just push him against the cage and just keep him there for 15 minutes. Most likely, Julian's going to win this fight, or Julian can get knocked out because Sam hits really hard. There's two very interesting fights that are opening up this card, by the way.
Let's talk.
We'll go with the win. So Nina Ansaroff, Miss Amanda Nunes, against Mackenzie Dern. So this is Nina I'm pretty sure this is Nina Ansaroff's first fight ever since she gave birth. And it's been a very long time since she fought before that. Yeah, she hasn't fought since June of 2019. So damn near 2 years, right? And her last fight was a loss to Tatiana Suarez. Good God, I miss her.
Oh, yeah.
Suarez. Remember Suarez was supposed to be the next thing?
I think I remember us talking about that fight, actually.
Dude, Suarez is a really good wrestler. Very good.
I don't remember what episode it was, but I do remember us talking about that fight.
Yeah, she's very good, and she has the skills to be the champion at strawweight, which is saying a lot because we're talking about arguably the best woman fighter not named Amanda Nunes, right? In Valentina Shevchenko, right? So I think that Tatiana Suarez has what it takes to beat her.
Someone who, when all is said and done with their career, I think might still end up proving that they're the best woman fighter of all time.
She's got to fight Nunes again.
I know, and that's where I say there's still that chance. But
all right, so let's go back just a little bit. So in 2014, she lost to Juliana Lima. Then she lost to Justine Kish.
We're talking about
Ansaroff.
So
just she beat Jocelyn Jones, Liebarger via submission. Beat Angela Hill in a decision. This is back in 2017, so this is not the Angela Hill that we're familiar with now, guys. Beats Randa Marcos in a decision. Nothing to turn your nose up at, but Randa Marcos is a 50-50 fighter.
Yep.
Beats Claudia Gadea in a decision back in 2018. That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
And then lost a decision to Tatiana Suarez, which doesn't. And she fought.
Which is not anything to, be upset about.
No. Tatiana's probably it sucks because she had a problem with her neck, and it almost it was really bad to the point where she could be paralyzed if she hurt herself again. So that's why she hasn't fought. And I'm not begrudging her, get back in there. I'm just saying it's unfortunate that we haven't seen her fight because I really do believe that she has the skills to win. So her last loss coming 2 years ago. Now she's fighting Mackenzie Dern, who has all the hype in the world. And I don't even know if she's lost. I don't know if she's lost in the UFC. She's 10-1. I don't remember who she lost to. Oh, Amanda Hebos. That's who she lost to. The smiling girl. The girl was super, super happy. She beat Ashley Yoder. A split decision.
So she's won her last 3 fights, basically, in the UFC.
Yeah, but she's also missed weight.
Yep. Which I think was...
She missed weight back in LFA. Dude, she missed weight back in Legacy FC in her second pro fight. She had to fight at a catchweight in her second fight, her third fight.
She missed weight against Amanda Cooper.
Missed weight against Amanda Cooper. I believe she missed weight again. She had other things where she missed weight, I believe. Or no, she had to move up a weight class? She's
not missed weight since Amanda Cooper. But she lost to Rivas and then...
Yeah, so Hannah Cyphers, which is whatever. She got a submission win. Randa Marcos, again.
Submission win.
And Verna. Jandaroba, was... I remember that fight. She hits really hard, but she was supposed to be a really good grappler, and they were supposed to interact a lot on the ground, and it just didn't happen. It was an interesting fight and all, and Dern looked great.
There's a lot of hype around Dern, so it's a...
So this one's also interesting because Mackenzie Dern did give birth, but it was a few years ago, right? Mm-hmm. I think, at least over a year ago. And she's had fights.
It was a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago.
Right, you're right. It was long enough that she's had fights since then. Right, she's had fights since she gave birth, so her body has adjusted again, and she's back into fight shape and all that stuff. Not saying that Nina isn't in fight shape, because she's had plenty of time. It's just this is her first fight back, and it's against Mackenzie Dern, crazy good grappler. I don't know how Ansaroff gets this done. That's the whole thing, and it would be cool for the MMA's biggest power couple to have 2 divisions. But I don't know how Ansaroff would beat Dern or Valentina at this point.
I was going to say, I think beating Dern is doable. Possible for her. Yeah, of Dern's last handful of fights, it's not like it's anyone that I couldn't see Ansaroff also beating. So
yes,
that's why. Yeah, there's a lot of hype behind Dern, but we'll see. And I don't necessarily know how much since Ansaroff has given birth that actually affects.
She was training the whole time she was pregnant too.
Yeah, that's what as long as you're keeping up with things, I can't imagine it has as much like that much of an impact. I would probably argue like, if anything, just lack of sleep or depending on like how after goes would be a
That's
more
what I
difficult
mean.
thing. Yeah, not necessarily like physical recovery, but
Yeah, her being a
just
mom of a young child, that's what I was worried about with Nunes, who had no problem.
yep. So if Nunes didn't have a problem, I'm guessing Anzarov probably
Well,
doesn't have.
yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Like, I'm
Yeah.
guessing they do something like this where they either have a nanny or one of them, takes on more responsibility when the other person needs them. I'm sure they have some sort of system down where they do that, and like,
Or just
um,
family. Like I don't know how
that's
much.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course, that's another possibility.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and then we
yeah,
have uh, the
Mike
wild
Perry.
card of all wild cards. He's kind of African, remember? Because he can say the N-word. Anyway, I have Mike.
I'm not going to get into that at all.
He says it all the time.
Yeah,
It's
I'm not.
ridiculous.
I'm not touching on that issue.
Yeah, and it's better. It's made even better because Tyron Woodley said he could.
Not touching on that either.
They had a conversation that said he could.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Daniel Rodriguez is the really good boxer. He's the one who he submitted Tim Means, but he was outstriking Tim Means. Beat Gabriel Green, Dwight Grant, knocked out Dwight Grant, and then lost to Nicholas Dalby. I don't know. I'm always rooting for Mike Perry recently because I think he's an interesting story in the UFC, and I think he's a crazy fun fighter to watch.
He gets headlines, which arguably,
Yes.
aside from wins, is probably the next best thing that you could possibly get in the UFC is headlines, because it keeps you in the game even if you're winning or losing, if you're drawing attention.
Yeah, he's fun. He's fun to watch in there. Dude, he's so up and down.
I know. That's what I mean. Like, but he gets headlines, he gets attention. People are drawn to
My goodness.
when he's either on a fight or just in media. So, yeah.
Win, 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 loss, win, win, loss, loss, win, loss, win, loss, loss, win, loss.
That's what.
And he's
But
fighting,
he also,
dude. He's fighting the best in this. To be fair, he's fighting. He fought Alan Jouban, Jake Ellenberger, Alex Reyes, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Max Griffin, Paul Felder, Donald Cerrone, Alex Oliveira, who he beat, by the way, Vicente Luque, Jeff Neal, Mickey Gall, which is whatever, and Tim Means. That's what I'm saying. Like, this guy has fought the best of that division. Like, what are you supposed to do?
He's a fun veteran that you're always happy when you see him on a card because you know it's probably going to be a good fight.
Which is crazy to me because I remember when he first came in against Hyun-Gyu Lim, and he knocked that guy out. I remember that fight. But it seems like yesterday, but that was in 2016. Oh my God. Yes, you're right. He's a 5-year UFC vet. That's nuts. I remember his first interview.
Wow, yeah,
he got
really
platinum.
That's crazy to think about, that he really has established himself that well in 5 years to where I think of him as a 10-year vet.
Dude, I remember before he had the freaking platinum tattoo above his forehead, or above his eyebrow. Sorry,
it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, that's the first thing he did. He was talking to Ariel Helwani on the phone, and he was like, "Oh, hey, I gotta go. I gotta hit my court. Like, I gotta go back to court." I'm like, court for what? He's like, "Oh, I got some stuff I gotta take care of."
When me and you first started talking about UFC, Mike Perry wasn't in the UFC.
No, that's crazy. I do think of him as like a staple of like a good gatekeeper for the welterweights.
And yet, he's just made a giant splash since he's gotten in.
All right, so we got hot sauce. Ooh. All right, we'll run through these relatively quick. I don't know. There are some good fights on this. They're good fighters. What the heck? All right, you got Jim Miller versus Joe Solecki as as the featured prelim fight, which is ridiculous. You got Scott Holtzman versus Mateus Gamrot. I know who Scotty Hot Sauce Holtzman is, but I don't know who Mateus is. Norma Dumont versus Aaron Blanchfield, who doesn't have a picture, so that's great. Yep. John Makdessi's fighting again. Ignacio Bahamondes, which is he's also gray. Jorgen De Castro is a shorter heavyweight who hits very hard. Like that's his thing. Like he just swings really hard and knocks people out. So he'll be fun, hopefully, to watch. Hunter Azure, he was supposed to be something great against Jack Shore, Jordan Griffin. Oh, Impa Kasangane versus Sasha Palatnikov. So Impa Kasangane was the guy who got knocked out last year, by that where he held the guy's kick.
Yep, crazy knockout.
Yeah, he was the one who
the unfortunate side of the highlight reel.
Yeah. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. That's unfortunate. All right. Yeah. So Impa Kasangane was like, he got posterized. Unfortunately, because he's 8-1, he's a good fighter. He just you don't. It's just one of those things like it's never happened until it happens.
Yeah.
It's like the Showtime kick, which, by the way, I want to go back to like when somebody runs off, like from last week, when someone runs off the cage and throws a kick. What do we call that kick?
Showtime. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's Anthony Pettis' kick. He's the one who did it. Anthony Showtime Pettis. We're not going to just call it the Chris Weidman now, the Weidman kick. Like, that's not what we're going to call it. Anyway.
You can't take it away from Anthony Pettis.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, that kick landed him on the Wheaties box. Let's be honest. If it weren't for that kick, he would have never been the fucking Wheaties box UFC fighter.
That's true.
Yeah, you can't ever take away that kick from him.
Yeah, and then the week after that is Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. So we'll talk about that next week after we break down these fights. All right, that is it for me. Do you have anything else?
No, nothing. Solid show all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for thank you guys for commenting and like Nicholas and Flying Maz. I appreciate it, guys. Like I really do. You guys are interacting and it's fantastic. Yeah. Like keep doing it.
I'm wrong more than I'm right. So yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If I say something stupid and you're like, if you're respectful about it, that I'm okay with it. If you're a turd, like I'll probably say something, but I'm not going to be like, I don't know. I'm wrong a lot. And if you say, hey, dude, you're wrong. Listen, this happened. You said this happened. You're wrong. Hey, this is what actually happened in history. You're wrong. That's fine. I totally get it. Yeah. I'm wrong a lot. But yeah, dude, I appreciate the interaction. Like I really do. And yeah, keep it up, please, guys. And like, if you like what we're doing here, please tell other people about it. Please. The more the merrier.
I will address damn near every comment that y'all put under there. As long as it's constructive, we'll address it.
Yeah, I want to make T-shirts and stuff, and like do all those things that everybody does. Like I think that'd be pretty badass. So, all right, that's it for me. You sure you don't got anything else? We don't got any more fights to talk about. That's it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Solid. All right, guys. Thank everybody for listening. If you made it this far, you're the best. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm glad I'm throwing this in at the end again because nobody makes it this far. Thanks, Hassan. All right, everybody. Love y'all.
And maybe
Thank you.
2 other people. Yeah.